critics and audiences don't always see eye to eye when it comes to movies. Some 80s films that got terrible reviews are now considered classics by fans. Here are some examples of famous movies where critics and audiences didn't see things the same way. Critics weren't impressed with George Lucas' 1988 fantasy movie Willow, calling it emotionless, predictable and flat. But many fans, especially children, fell in love with the movie's charm and adventure. Willow is so treasured that Disney Plus is reviving it with a series set to premiere in November 2022. Flashdance, a 1983 movie about a woman who is a welder by day and a dancer by night, was a hit among viewers despite being criticized for lacking depth. It follows the lead's dream of being a ballet dancer and is often compared to Saturday Night Fever. It may not have impressed critics, but its fun and sexy vibe entertained many viewers. See what other movies were the highest grossing the year you were born. Krush Groove depicts the early days of Def Jam recordings and the true story of Run DMC. While loved by the public for its plot, critics criticized the movie for its acting. Check out the best and worst free streaming services for TV and movies. In the 1985 movie Weird Science, two high school boys create the perfect woman through an experiment. Although the public loved it, critics were not impressed, criticizing the plot as relying too heavily on vulgar humor. Kelly LeBrock was praised for her performance as the female lead. Back to the Future was a box office success and is still loved by many today, but it wasn't always viewed fondly by critics. The Los Angeles Times labeled it as big, cartoonish, and empty in their review, suggesting that the interesting premise wasn't fully executed. Nonetheless, the film's endearing characters, humor, and time-traveling DeLorean continue to capture audiences' hearts. Molly Ringwald's 80s hit, Pretty in Pink, might be a fan favorite, but critics weren't impressed. The plot of a girl from the wrong side of the tracks falling for the popular boy didn't impress reviewers. Eddie Murphy and Richard Pryor in Harlem Nights make a hilarious 80s comedy duo. Critics were unimpressed with Murphy's direction, feeling he only cast his friends and didn't develop other elements of the film. Nonetheless, fans will find the movie a comedic goldmine. Tom Cruise's 1988 film Cocktail fixated on the romance between a bartender and an artist to win over fans. However, critics felt the film relied too heavily on Cruise's star power rather than a solid plotline, with Time magazine stating, "Cocktail has no reason for being other than to market the Cruise charm like a cheap celebrity perfume." The Breakfast Club remains a beloved classic, known for breaking down stereotypes among high school students. The 1985 movie has only increased in popularity over the years, cementing its status as an 80s icon. However, some critics felt the relationships between characters felt forced and unrealistic. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito, two polar opposite twins separated at birth, starred in the 1988 comedy Twins. The concept was bizarre yet charming, however, it failed to impress critics who found it wasn't that funny. 80s action classic Action Jackson keeps audiences engaged with non-stop action and unique comedic relief. Critically acclaimed for its stunts, but criticized for subpar acting and generic plot. In 1989, Roadhouse was released with a star-studded cast including Patrick Swayze and Sam Elliott. While it gained a fanbase, many critics thought the film was too violent, too long, and full of itself. Cheapism originally published this article. In this piece, Cheapism covers a range of topics from wasteful celebrity spending to the cost of beer and hot dogs at baseball games. They also delve into the strange and expensive items that have been sold at auction, and provide tips for snagging cheap concert tickets. If you're a fan of their content, they suggest giving them a follow.